Welcome to the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute for Social and Economic Studies, better known as SALISES. We are a community of scholars at UWI dedicated to researching key development challenges in the Caribbean. SALISES received a lot of attention for its major conference, Critical Reflections in a Time of Uncertainty, held in August 2012 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of independence in the Commonwealth Caribbean. However, not many people know much about the Institute's ongoing research and the fellows who are a part of the community. So, let's meet some of them.
Well, I'm Brian Meeks. I'm the director of SALISES. I'm a professor here. The chair is Social and Political Change. In addition to being director of SALISES, I'm also director of the Center for Caribbean Thought, which is a little institute that we established when I was in the Department of Government to really excavate notions of Caribbean thought via conferences, book series, etc. etc. As director of SALISES, my job is really to coordinate research in the institute to ensure that we fulfill our mandate, which is really to provide social science research at the highest levels on all the issues that matter in the social sciences in society in the Caribbean and beyond for the University of West Indies.
I'm Aldrie, Senior Research Fellow at the Sir Arthur Lewis Institute of Social and Economic Studies. As my name says, Research Fellow, I do quite a lot of research on child rights or child-related issues, and also I teach in the graduate program. I look at how well we are adhering to our regulations as set out by on the Convention on the Rights of the Child. I look at the protection of children, the provisions that we have made through health and education programs for our children, and I also look at how well children are participating in the decision-making process in the Caribbean.
I'm Witter. I'm a senior research fellow here at SALISES. I've been with the university since 1974. Not always with SALISES, but I'm now with SALISES. What SALISES allows me to do is to pursue my interests, which, first of all, I would like to find where the center of the universe is. But more modestly, I'm interested in why we are poor and how we can take advantage of our natural resources and the gifts that nature has given us so that we can improve the conditions of life of our people. And right now you, the next generation, have many challenges economically, culturally. You have problems of climate change to deal with, and so this is a research institute that allows you to deal with all of these things by themselves, in their relationship with each other, and really a good place for young people who are also trying to find the center of the universe. Over the years I've studied many things, problems of poverty, generally problems of development for Jamaica and the Caribbean. In recent years I've spent a lot of time looking at the music industry and other creative industries as ways in which Jamaica can engage the global economy much more efficiently than it has in the past. And in looking at the potential impacts of climate change and how we can adapt. I think those are the two main areas that I'm working in now. But from time to time I do work on housing, on problems of water, and various things, young people, many things.
Well, I'm a development economist and senior fellow. We are engaged in a process of trying to understand the challenges facing Caribbean societies and the development prospects in the region and internationally. And my specific sense of the contributions that I'm able to make in SALISES is to have a deeper understanding of the development problematic and the challenges that face Caribbean societies, and in particular I'm animated by the problem of freedom. What does freedom mean and what are its implications for small states which have a high degree of exposure to international events and need to import the majority of goods that they consume. I'm interested in the details. I'm interested in the kinds of practices, the kinds of rules, the kinds of incentive frameworks. So development economics is how I start to define myself, and that's what I see myself as, a development economist in the tradition of Arthur Lewis, who was our premier development economist.
Well, they call me Tindigarukayo. My students call me Tindi. I would prefer they call me Jimmy. Well, I've been at SALISES since 1992. I've been teaching research methods to postgraduate students and doing research. Most of the time I do research on public policy reforms, but more recently I've been concentrating on housing because I'm concerned about lack of housing, especially for the poor. So I've been doing some work on squatters, what can be done to improve the conditions of housing for the lower income groups in the country.
I'm Patsy Lewis. I'm a senior fellow at SALISES. I am from Grenada, but I've been in Jamaica since 1983 for the most part. In terms of my research, it's fairly eclectic, I would think, but the common theme running through it is small states and the challenges they have to survive as independent entities.
My own work is, on the one hand, political history, and I'm very much engaged in contemporary political history, the evolution of politics in Jamaica in the very post-independence period we're talking about. On the other hand, I'm also a political economist coming from the political science perspective of political economy, in that I'm looking at possible ways out of the impasse that we're in now. My last book, published in 2007, Envisioning Caribbean Futures, actually took a political economy perspective to look at some of those things. And the new book that I'm trying to put together as a collection of articles over the past 15 years basically is a combination of retrospective, some very autobiographical retrospections, as well as prospective. Where do we go from here and how do we move out of it? The other dimension in that book is my other interest, which is political theory. And so there are a number of engagements with my contemporaries. Some of them go a little bit beyond engagement to be almost battles, but friendly battles over ideas and how these might work in social sciences in the Caribbean.
Hi, my name is Terri-Ann Gilbert-Roberts, a fellow at SRAD. I undertake research in the areas of governance, regionalism, and youth development. My core research interest is really in the future of our Caribbean societies and our prospects for improving the quality of life for every Caribbean citizen.
Well, the research has to do many things. Pursue his or her own ideas independently, with assistance, with or without resources, in teams. It's always better to work in teams because more heads are better than one. But there are some times when you have an interest that nobody else is quite interested in the same way, and you just have to pursue it in the best way you can. It means that you're going to be doing many things at the same time, and therefore your time management becomes important. So as a researcher, once you have a sense of inquiry, want to find out things, then you have to get the discipline to focus your energies on each project according to the priorities that you have, and do your best in terms of leaving the world a better place for those who come after you.
Over the last 2 years, a major 50-50 project has set the framework for the SALISES researchers. 50-50 has allowed fellows to collaborate with others through research clusters to pursue individual interests and to share their findings through conferences, seminars, and publications. Let's find out more about these 50-50 activities.
We've been working on a program called 50-50, Critical Reflections in a Time of Uncertainty, which has been a series of events to commemorate 50 years of independence in the Anglophone Caribbean, in the Commonwealth Caribbean if you wish. Jamaica and Trinidad became independent in 1962. in the same month, August 6th for Jamaica, August 31st for Trinidad, and we've been working on a program that basically looks at that history, critically examines the extent to which independence has had an impact across the society in the various spheres, in the economy, in social life, in the politics of the region. And out of that, and the reason we call it 50-50, it's not only 50 years looking back, but 50 years looking forward. What are the prospects for the next 50 years in all the spheres that matter in our Caribbean society? The SALISES research project, post 50-50, which is an attempt to bring together some of the key clusters that emerged out of 50-50, including integration, rural agricultural development, youth, the governance cluster, and others, to bring together clusters that would group SALISES academics with scholars from both Jamaica and the rest of the region, as well as internationally, around themes and focused areas of research, and to develop programs that can carry us on as around central themes. So we're trying to give a more focused approach, bring a more focused approach to the work we do, and we hope that in the coming months we'll unveil that program.
We have a social policy cluster, and some of us are looking specifically at children, but also at the process of formulating social policy in Jamaica. So Hermione Mackenzie, for example, is looking at the formulation and implementation process of social policy in Jamaica. Heather Ricketts is also looking at early childhood institutions and the benefits of early childhood education. And Pauline Knight is one of our members, and she's looking at poverty. So we have some quite exciting research coming from there, and we hope to publish very soon.
The Social Policy Cluster also organizes an annual Caribbean Child Research Conference, which is held in Jamaica.
Oh, the conference is actually the most exciting part of my work right now, if I may say so. It's an annual conference. This year, 2013, will be the 8th year that we are hosting the conference. It's a very lovely conference, not because I'm part of it, but because we have equal voice to children and adults at the conference. So on the first day we have the adults presenting on child-related issues, and the second day we have children from the Caribbean presenting on their work on child-related issues. So, and they compete for an Outstanding Child Researcher Award, which has gone very well. We have had Trinidadians and Jamaicans presenting, and also for the last 3 years we have included a primary school essay competition. And so the primary school children also come and present at the conference. And that, of course, is very important for us, since we are adhering to the child rights, participation rights that we have set out in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So it's a very exciting conference, and I hope you come and participate in it.
We had a governance and politics cluster, which essentially did two things. First of all, it looked at the past 50 years through the eyes of leaders, and certainly being located in Jamaica, we were able to get a number of our former prime ministers to speak about their own reflections on 50 years of independence. And we had a series of 3 major speeches coming from P.J. Patterson, Edward Seaga, and Portia Simpson Miller, who was then in the opposition but had been herself at the time a former prime minister. It was very successful, both in terms of audience participation as well as in getting the sort of frank opinions of people who had served at the highest level in the post-independence period. In addition to that, we organized a series of panels at 50-50 itself. Among the most interesting was a panel on tribalism in Jamaica. Tribalism, the question of unquestioning adherence to one or another of the parties, even to the level of violence in the name of those parties to maintain them in power, try to get them into power, is one of the deep-seated problems in Jamaican politics. Indeed, it feeds through the whole society. It affects affects social behavior, and it also affects the economy in severe ways. So we had a very interesting panel with leading politicians participating, reflecting on the origins of tribalism and where we can go from here. So that pointed to the second part of what we're trying to do, and this will be unveiled in the coming months post 50/50, which is to really begin to look at very concrete proposals as to how we can address the weaknesses in the political system as it emerged in the post-independence period. Of course, it had its strengths. It maintained a functioning system of succession in which parties losing power in relatively fair elections actually gave up power willingly and allowed the opposition, which had won the election, to take over. And that's very important if you look at the history of the world in the post-World War II period, that there are not many countries from our part of the world at any rate which were able to maintain that. And in the Caribbean, for the most part, with one or two exceptions, we've done that. But these systems at the same time have tremendous weaknesses, and we can't go into all of them here, but just to say that what we hope to do is to extend the debate as to what needs to be done. And of course that can then look back at some of the philosophical underpinnings of Westminster as it was practiced here, and how we need to change those if we are to enhance democracy. And I think the broad assumption is that we want to enhance democracy, not to make it less democratic, which is a big assumption which also needs defending, and we can do that as well.
Well, SRAD means Sustainable Rural and Agricultural Development. And the reason why we have rural before agricultural is that the UN has a program, Agenda 21, looking at sustainable development, and in it has SRAD, Sustainable Agricultural and Rural Development. And we wanted to have a conceptual and philosophical shift. Why? Agriculture tends to have a context in which the focus is on enhancing output for markets. So there's a very export-oriented sense in which we're thinking of looking at raising levels of productivity for particular commodities, and we're trying to grow through that process. Whereas rurality brings you back to the idea of what are the spaces in which these sectors are operating in. What is the dynamic of the rural space? What is the dynamic of rural development within which agriculture must function? So the first thing you have to get sustainable is rural development. The first thing you have to think about before you can start pumping money into agriculture is what are going to be the consequences for the lives of the individuals who are in these rural spaces. So it has to be sustainable rural and then agricultural development as a part of this broader focus on rural development issues.
Currently, I am spearheading 2 research clusters on the SALISES 50/50 project. One is on regional integration, which concerns us. I have a group of people working with who are very concerned about the state of the regional project and its inability so far to address some of the challenges we have as independent states. And so we are focused on trying to see what the regional space can look like, should look like, what are some of the mechanisms that need to be placed, how we need to rethink the region. So we're trying to do, hopefully something that would have some impact at some point.
Really, what was involved was to get some people who could write papers on housing. At the same time, I was lucky to get the former Minister of Housing as well as the current Minister and the Chairman of NHT to participate in the round table discussion. As well, we had a panel. Yeah, we had a panel of about 5 papers on housing. Written, one was by me, another one by a former student of mine, who was writing on housing on both Jamaica and Trinidad. Now based in Trinidad with her PhD, which she completed recently. Another one was written by a group of officers from the National Housing itself.
Well, I recently had the privilege of bringing together a group of researchers who share my interest in the future of the Caribbean to form a youth cluster to look at issues around empowering young people for the next 50 years of Caribbean development. And the cluster really is a forum for critical dialogue based on research about issues that affect young people, but also about issues that young people themselves identify as priorities for the future. We've noticed that young people's voices and their ideas are often absent from a lot of the discussions on development, and so we hope to bring them into the dialogue so that we can help and support them to develop new and innovative strategies to deal with the increasingly complex development challenges that we face.
On Grenada, my colleagues and I are looking at Grenada from the perspective of social cohesion. Basically, we're looking at a series of crises that have affected Grenada. Grenada is very interesting because it has had a very interesting history. And the points that we are looking at, the points of crises we have identified are the Grenada Revolution in 1979, the killing of Maurice Bishop, the Prime Minister at the time, and a number of other people, including some cabinet ministers, on October 19, 1983, and the invasion of Grenada by United States forces. JDF troops were involved as well, on the 25th of October 1983. And we're also looking at Hurricane Ivan, which struck in 2005, and more currently we're looking at the recession. So what we're looking at is trying to get a sense of how the extent to which community exists in Grenada, how strong are community connections, how are they manifested, and how do they come into play at points of crisis. Now, Hurricane Ivan, most people are similarly affected, and I think when a hurricane happens, there's a lot of social engagement. The problem comes when you have political conflicts, serious political conflicts like the revolution and its demise. At that point, societies are ruptured, or there's a potential for rupture. And in a small society with 100,000 people, where people are kin, it becomes very difficult. So what I'm trying to find out is how have these societies managed to move beyond these points of intense conflict to continue to survive as fairly cohesive societies. And the work we do has implications not just for understanding Grenada, but understanding other small states similarly affected. So at the end of the day, research is about understanding where you are. It's about having an idea that excites you, a question that troubles you, that you want to explore, you want to answer. But at the end of the day, it's also finding connections with other people who are similarly engaged, and finding that kind of comparative focus where your understanding of one society can actually help with an understanding of similarly placed societies. And that is what we're doing.
And of course, SALISES publishes the research it produces, so that others can not only benefit from the findings, but also engage us in dialogue.
Hi, I'm Annie Paul. I'm Senior Publications Officer at SALISES. Most people think that means that I'm a librarian, but that's not correct. I'm actually a publisher, an academic publisher. I'm editor of a journal, a very venerable journal that was started almost, 60 years ago in 1953, called Social and Economic Studies. And that is SES, as we call it for short, is a quarterly, peer-reviewed quarterly journal that covers social science, mainly social science subjects. And peer review means that every article that is submitted to us gets sent out to 2 blind reviewers, meaning that the reviewers will not know who the article is by, and they are supposed, and we always look for people who are qualified to comment on the particular subject. So there's a pretty lengthy review process, and the idea is that therefore everything we publish has been vetted and has been improved for publication in the journal. Because it's called social and economic studies, our ambit is quite wide. But typically I'll just give you an idea from the last two issues. The most recent one was a special issue on women's reproductive health. It's titled Women's Reproductive Health and Rights in Select Caribbean Countries, guest edited by Taitu Heron and Shakira Maxwell, who both are young researchers who work at UWI. Another recent issue was focused on law and justice in the Commonwealth Caribbean. So we had articles by people who participated in a conference on law and justice earlier last year. Yes, this was an issue that was part of our 50-50, SALISES' 50-50 program of events, research-related events to commemorate Jamaica's 50th anniversary of independence last year. So as you can see, it's a wide range and it covers the region. It's not just about Jamaica. So my own research interests are quite removed from the sphere of what I do every day, what I call my day job, which is managing editor of social and economic studies. I'm a writer, and I don't write fiction. It's more what you call critical writing, and I've written quite extensively about art, visual art, both in Jamaica and the Caribbean, and now I'm beginning to write about art in India. I'm also a trained journalist. I have a blog and I write for newspaper. I used to have a column in the Sunday Herald for years, and last year I published 3 articles in Newsweek International. So I not only write in local media but also international media.
I think SALISES, and I think this is what our research faculty is trying to do, is rethinking, which is why we have new programs, and refocusing our research in a way that we can actually lend voice to some of the critical issues facing Jamaica and hopefully beyond Jamaica, to try and see the best way forward.
Well, I'm the newest fellow at SALISES, having joined just over a year ago, and I've found the environment to be one that's very dynamic and exciting in terms of being able to participate in a wide range of research events under the 50-50 project, looking at issues from economics to governance to culture, social policy and sports. It's really a great place to be.
In addition to all the eclectic research ongoing at SALISES, its members also find time to teach postgraduate students.
SALISES is a rare space in the university because it gives as much weight to research as it does to teaching. We have a small graduate program, so it allows for better interaction with students, but it also allows you to draw on your research. So there's synergy. You develop the courses. The courses I have taught at SALISES so far have been courses that I have conceptualized, not courses that somebody else has conceptualized that I then execute. And I have this wonderful symbiotic relationship between what I teach and what I research, in that the teaching raises questions which drive my research, and my research then informs the teaching. And I think that's the best place to be in.
SALISES has the best blend of research and teaching at the moment, especially for our 50-50 projects. Well, we have an excellent cadre of researchers. Very exciting work is going on. There's social policy, there's integration, there's poverty, there's economics. There are lots of clusters, and they will be able to enrich the research process. They'll be able to learn from what we do, and we certainly want to build capacity by ensuring that they take part in our research projects that we implement.
Well, SALISES is organized for graduate study. Its primary activity is research, so it's an institution that's specialized for students who want to pursue their careers and need to develop research skills. And it allows particularly for interdisciplinary work, and that's important to break down the silos between disciplines. And here you're working with people who are from other disciplines, and you get an insight and better understanding what you're doing. So for those students who are not gung-ho, driven obsessively almost to participate, to pursue one discipline, with good reason, there's nothing wrong with that. But those who would like to get a broader perspective, then SALISES offers a research program and a research team and a set of facilities which the other departments don't offer for researchers.
I think that one of the good things about SALISES is that it has a very young, enthusiastic faculty who are involved in very interesting kinds of research projects. And any student who comes here gets the opportunity to work with these professionals, these academics who are actually, there are a lot of academics who do no research and simply teach. And that it's your teaching ought to be informed by your research, and SALISES is unique because it, unlike the other departments which are mainly teaching departments, SALISES is also a research institute. And so I think that students who come here benefit from that kind of research-oriented atmosphere which may be lacking in other departments.
So, why should you consider SALISES for your postgraduate studies?
Well, first of all, undergraduate students should begin thinking from now what they're going to do as when they graduate. Some people are so tired they just want to go back to leave academic work as far as possible and go back to whatever it is they did before, or if they're just out of high school, find a job and earn some money. And I can appreciate that. But increasingly in the world we live in, the first degree is just a foundation, and you need to do at least a master's. We provide a course in our master's. We have a new master's course that is oriented towards interdisciplinary studies in the social sciences. It's called a Master's in Development Studies. And we hope to create a person out of that who is able to function at a leadership level in a variety of settings, both locally, regionally, and internationally, both in the public, the private, and the non-governmental sectors. We think that somebody who is interdisciplinary, who has certain tools of research, and who has also been trained in a broad, almost liberal arts training, will be able to function in a variety of settings effectively, and we hope to produce leaders. So for those of you who want to go beyond your first degree in the social sciences, we'll consider people who are in the humanities. We'll even consider people coming from the natural sciences if we think that you're good enough. We suggest that you consider SALISES, Masters in Development Studies. For those of you at a higher level who want to do a research degree because you want a career in research, or because there's a problem out there that you just simply want to solve, you can consider us to do your MPhil and perhaps get it upgraded to a PhD in a field which, or in a topic, a thesis topic in which you have great interest. And we look forward to your considering SALISES for your graduate work. And of course, you undergraduates who want to come across and find out what we're doing, you're welcome anytime to come.
If you're curious, if you want to go beyond the norm, where you want to set the agenda, define the problems, and offer ways to address them, I think that that's what a higher degree gives you. Most people are content to be in a job and have somebody else set the framework and somebody else tell them what to do, and at the end of the day perform their tasks. But some people would want more out of a work environment than that. They would want to be part of the leadership, setting the agenda, and I think that's a good reason to do it. I'd like you to consider us at SALISES if you want to do your MPhil PhD. We have some solid people here, and it's about your ideas, letting your ideas run wild, and thinking about the things that interest you, that motivate you, which is a different experience than being in a normal taught environment where you are forced to pursue courses whether you want to or not. This, you're following your dream, your interest. So, this is a good place to be.
You can find out more about us on Mona Research Days or through our website. We look forward to connecting with many of you very soon.